Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today I want to talk about the possible future for Total War. This is something I've been talking about now for a few weeks over on stream on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges, but I figured it's time to do a video on it because it's something that really does need a lot of discussion. So, we know that Total War games right now have been going into a kind of series format. Total War Warhammer, for example, is a 1, 2, and 3, which, yeah, pretty damn cool. And technically they did try that with Total War Pharaoh, with the whole Troy and Pharaoh thing. There were rumors that there was supposed to be a third game, but it looks like that's not happening considering that Pharaoh Dynasties didn't perform too well. It's still a decent game, but Warhammer itself has proven to be very popular. The problem is that with a series like Total War Warhammer, there are flaws. It's been very obvious from moving from Game 1 to Game 2, and even Game 2 to Game 3. Flaws have presented themselves, issues have presented themselves, and as we look towards new possible games in the future, the rumoured Total War 40k, which is apparently going to be announced this year, again, mostly just rumours, the possible Total War Star Wars leaks potentially bearing fruit, and other games in the future, even a Med 3 and so on. I'm hoping that Creative Assembly learns that while a series does work, it might be better to work in the format of a Evergreen title. Evergreen games are mostly common throughout MMOs, for example World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, but they are starting to become more common with grand strategy titles, mostly in the form of games within the Paradox sector. Hearts of Iron 4 is a relatively oldish game and is getting constant support. EU4 right now, but it's going to be moving on to EU5, it's about time that they updated. Crusader Kings 3 is one of those ones. What I mean here is rather than free games or direct sequels, one mega game and constant updates. And before anyone says, well, that's just going to present the Paradox issue, which is just loads of DLCs. I mean, we're still getting loads of DLCs. Look at Warhammer 3. If you want the complete experience, you have to buy 3 base games and a shit ton of DLCs for all of the games to get the full complete experience. So let's talk about the issues that have been presented lately and over the years through Warhammer 1 all the way up to Warhammer 3. When it came to Warhammer 1 to Warhammer 2, before that we had the Norska DLC. The Norska DLC did not translate well into Warhammer 3, despite the fact that it was billed as a pre-order incentive for Warhammer 2. This did not release until after the Mortal Empires got released. So Game 2 Race was only actually playable during the end of the life cycle for Game 2. As of the time recording this video, but I very much doubt that they're ever going to go back to Warhammer 2, none of the Norscan races are available in the Eye of the Vortex campaign, which is the main campaign for Warhammer 2. Not only that, but there was a bit of a wait for the Mortal Empires campaign, which a lot of people preferred because they want the giant sandbox. There were some other minor issues from 1 to 2, but it wasn't as bad. Then Warhammer 3. So Warhammer 3 was a pretty weird launch as it stood, but the main thing there is they did try to change out the lighting, they tried to change out certain things. All that experimentation clearly was not ready for the launch, and that's why Warhammer 3's launch was so terrible. Alongside that, you had to wait, what was it, 6 months until Immortal Empires got released? Which meant that a lot of people were already burnt out with the game. The Realm of Chaos map was not what people wanted. But the rushed work to get multiple titles out, even though it's the same setting, did lead to a lot of issues. Again, trying to change the lighting to that more of Free Kingdom style did present with map problems when you were in the middle of battles. This was early in Warhammer 3, which thankfully did start to get fixed up as we got closer to Immortal Empires, and ever so slightly we've been getting patches every now and then which have been fixing up all these major issues. I'm quite happy about that. The game is in a much better state now than it was. But could this problem be avoided in future titles if they want to make another series? If the rumors are true and a Total War 40k is going to happen, it's likely that that is going to get 10 years of support, very much similar to what we've had so far for Warhammer Fantasy, if not more, considering that 40k is the bigger product, there is a lot more happening with it, and it's actively getting supported by Games Workshop, which does mean that new content is arriving every year or so. Keep in mind, 40k is ever evolving, new races, redone races, and that stuff could be translated into the game. A series, so 1, 2, and 3, could cause some problems, whereas if they did it as an evergreen function, it could get a lot better. So what I'm saying here is Total War 40k, for example, one and only one. No sequel, no third one either. You might be wondering how this could be possible without the development time or, for example, just sequels to justify map expansions. So let's talk about how that could happen. Well, they could easily start off with a smaller map, that of like Warhammer 1, 4 races at launch, all the typical stuff, right? And then start doing map expansions where applicable, and that will then add in the extra races too. The idea here is expansions, so going back to the expansion format, rather than a standalone sequel. This means that they could keep expanding on it, and each map expansion would be relatively small or big, depending on the size and scope of the game. But think about it this way. Imagine the area that we had originally with Warhammer 1. Then if they want to go race by race, DLC comes in, adds in the Darklands, boom, Chaos Dwarfs, all the usual stuff. I'm using Warhammer Fantasy as an example here because obviously that's the current series that we've dealt with. But then they can keep adding to it. Mountains of Morn, Ogre Kingdoms, going down south, Nekara, Tomb Kings. It's just more and more locations with more races being added in. One map, one game. It's perfect now because we actually know that there's new technology found out by Creative Assembly Sophia actually, where they're able to move the map from 0-0. This is what they did with Pharaoh Dynasties, to be able to combine the Troy map with the map from Pharaoh. With some obvious changes, clearly, because the scaling is a little bit weird when it comes to the Troy section, but it still works out very, very well. It's another thing, most Creative Assembly games were made by 0-0, meaning that they couldn't expand the map downwards, but now that's entirely possible. The expansion system would still give you the map expansion for free in the patch, so it would incentivize you to fight those factions in a similar way how it works for Total War now. You don't have to buy the DLC, but you'll still fight against those factions, and that kind of goes like, oh, these units work really well against mine. I'm going to buy the DLC and see how they work when I use them. You're basically paying for the race and the map expansion. It's basically a full patch there. But the idea is, again, keep evolving the title. Crusader Kings 3 is doing that now with a new patch system, which is going to add in China and so on. So it's basically the East being added to the map. Europa Universalis was also one that did that. It's now basically got the full world, and it works really well. We don't know how exactly Total War 40k would work if this is a true game, but I do believe it is. I'm imagining it's going to be more of a system of planets in a very much Empire of War standard, but that can also be expanded from there too. And this works for historical games also. If we finally get a Fabled Medieval 3, it could start off in, Central Europe, a bit of Eastern Europe also, but then expanding further into all of Eastern Europe, go into Asia, go down into Africa, get all the cultures there. There's a lot of DLC potential, and it means that the game just constantly keeps evolving, rather than waiting for the next one, and the next one. I think that this format would work incredibly well for Total War because, again, it stops the issues of sequels that are tied in, causing and presenting more and more issues. Maybe I'm wrong here. I just think that this might be a good idea, as this system has worked very well for Paradox, and it could just be a great way forward for Total War. More dedicated support, rather than wasting time creating the same map again and again, because keep in mind that the map would not be needed to be created from fresh over and over. You don't need a Realm of Chaos map, a normal map from Game 1, a Mortal Empires, a Immortal Empires, and Eye of the Vortex map. It's just one giant map, which is the end result. Same thing for historical. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. I'm very curious to see what you guys think here. I'm sorry I've not really been posting a lot lately. I had an issue with one of the PC fans, which seems to have stabilized now. But yeah, it happened right before Easter, and all the shops were already closed down here, which you guys can't hear it in the recordings, but I can certainly hear it, and it is driving me off the deep end. The OCD does not work here. But yeah, I should be live later today. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing some Total War or maybe the Oblivion remaster if that ends up being true. I hope it is, because goddamn, I really want an Oblivion remaster. So have a great day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.